very awesome panelists right here for you guys to learn everything and anything about writing. So, enough of me talking. I'm going to go ahead and let these wonderful people introduce themselves.
Who's going to go first?
Start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's go with Hannah. Hannah, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm the producer and co-creator for Englewood After Dark. I'm also a horror writer. I have lots of I have lots of short horror fiction published in various magazines. I am obsessed with writing and craft, so I'm excited to be here.
All right. Lumi, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Lumi Oakes. I am the co-creator of Wanderer's Journal, but not the writer, but heavily involved with the story planning. And I'm also the writer and creator of the upcoming show, The Mechadova Engine. In my day-to-day life, I study dramaturgy, which is essentially the study of narratives, theater, and performance. Yeah.
MJ?
Hello, I'm MJ. I've snuck in. I don't actually write for podcasts, but I am a podcast academic, so I write about it, and I'm a PhD student to be. I'm publishing things on just writing, making sure that audio drama is out there in the podcast studies world. And I also run the Ear Candy Archive, where I put out just recommendations for very personalized ones for audio drama that I think is really good. Yeah.
That is awesome. And as you guys can see, we have a fantastic panel. So let's go ahead and start off with some questions. So, guys, we'll go ahead and start with Lumi. How long have you been writing for?
I mean, it depends a little bit on what that means, but I've been writing in general for as long as I can remember. But I'm very new to audio drama writing. I've only been a part of audio drama writing for like a year or two.
Wow.
So I
You're
haven't.
slaying.
I've written a lot of in a lot of different mediums before, but this is the first thing that's like being published in this sort of way.
Oh my, that's awesome. What was some of your like early writings, like besides audio drama since you've been doing? Were you doing any type of other writing beforehand or?
I've been in a few writing courses where I've written some short stories and that sort of thing. So it's mostly been sort of book and short story writing that I've tried before. So this is very but yeah, and then recently I've gotten really into reading and writing scripts of different kinds.
That's amazing. How about you, Hannah? How long have you been writing for?
Oh God, very long time. I picked it up very seriously during the pandemic. Is anyone surprised to hear these words come out of someone's mouth? During the pandemic, I realized, I basically, during the pandemic was like, I need to feel my life go forward. It feels like it isn't. So I started doing my creative writing masters at that time. And sort of relaunched my want to start writing because I was like, oh, I'll be a writer one day, and I hadn't really thought about like when the one day would be. But then that sort of push from the creative writing degree really made me go, yeah, okay, now the answer is now. I'm doing it now. And I started to submit my short fiction to various different places, various different magazines and competitions, and I won a couple of different awards and got some of my stuff published, and I was like, this is really cool, but it's also really lonely writing short fiction by yourself. And so when I was like, I asked my friends, two of my friends, if they wanted to work on an audio drama together because I was working on the scripting component of my creative writing masters. And I was like, what if we did this together, collaboratively, and I could have friends who were also writing with me? And we launched from there.
That's amazing. It's always fun to have friends with you. Then you could throw ideas at each other and just let the
Yeah.
ideas flourish.
Mhm.
So, MJ, how about yourself? How long have you been writing for, if even if it's not audio dramas per se?
This one's a fun question. Let's say for actual official out there published years, then it's probably been about 2 years that I've been seriously writing about fiction podcasts, since I did my master's thesis on them, and I just started all of my various publishing things. Shout out to the Audio Drama Gazette. They're super cool. Everyone should go sign up for that. I don't write for them at all. What do you mean? But as a fan of like someone who's been writing, I've maintained a Google Doc that's just a long list of every single podcast I've ever listened to, and I've had it for 10 years. So I've been writing that and sharing it around.
So, MJ, what made you get into audio dramas?
Oh, I love this question. So the horror genre got me here, as it did for, I think, a lot of us. And this is gonna date me horribly. I'm only 22, but like it will like let you know the certain like time period. But my first audio drama / fiction podcast was the No Sleep podcast, and then I got into Pseudopod, and then Knife Point Horror, I'm in Askew, and by the time Night Vale rolled around, I was already deep in, so it was just a cliff after that.
I can definitely understand the No Sleep. I was such a fan of it. I became obsessed. So, yeah, no, you trust me, you're not dating anything. I think we've all hopped on
We're
to the
from the
No
same
Sleep
generation of
train.
audio.
Definitely. Hannah, how about yourself? What made you get into audio dramas?
For me, it was Welcome to Night Vale, like the whole yeah. It
Yeah.
I mean the gateway drug that it is.
Truly. Drinking Chrono, man.
But I didn't really get into audio dramas, like in the sense of like that was like I was one of those like on the cusp of audio dramas for a really long time, where it was just like I had my toe in that particular pool, and that was pretty much it. And then I ended up listening to a lot of like actual plays as podcasts, and then from there discovered it sort of went backwards on myself and discovered the audio drama space after that, with like the Silt versus and then I really fell in love with more recently the Grotto. Just the sound, just
the Grotto.
the music of the Grotto really does call to the I don't know, my spine somehow, and just sort of got immersed, and I really enjoyed splashing around in this pond after sitting on the edge for so long.
That's amazing. And no, the Grotto is really good. Their music, I don't know who does their music, but
It's
oh my
Athen,
God.
who also makes it.
Athen.
Really? I did not know that. So,
Mhm.
Lumi, how about yourself? What made you get into audio drama?
It was kind of on a whim. I listened to the Bright Sessions in 2020 because I had it recommended to me, and then it sort of gradually spiraled from there. I just sort of I took a little break, and then there was like a period of time where I was sort of listening to like the Magnus Archives and the Penumbra podcast and some others, and I just sort of didn't get enough of it, so I just kept listening to things. So relatively recently, during the pandemic, and then it just sort of spiraled.
No, definitely. I mean, the pandemic opened so many doors for people to get into audio dramas, and I think that's one of the very few things that came out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go ahead and swing this question to Hannah. What was your inspirations for writing?
Oh, in general?
In general, just like it does in general, like what made you like inspires you for writing? Does it writing a long train,
Oh,
relaxing?
so for me, I am a voracious consumer of both audio dramas and reading. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with reading, and I got faster at it so that I could somehow cram more books into my day-to-day activities. I can now comfortably read a 300-page book in about like 2 hours. I go very fast. I wish there was a way to. This is an insane thing to say. I wish there's a way to preserve the audio fidelity of audio dramas, but somehow make them go into my brain faster. so that I could consume more faster.
Invent time
but
travel.
Invent time travel, listen to everything simultaneously, the good old fashioned thing. But based off of that, like I grew up when I was a kid writing fan fiction, and because of that I've always had this like being inspired from other people and pulling things from being like, oh, that's a really interesting idea, but what if you did it like this? I love that like genesis of an idea, but what if you took it in this direction? And I like have a little notebook that I keep that is just the beginnings of ideas that I like to keep, that I have to write down, because otherwise my brain is like, no, we focus on the new idea now. I don't care what you were doing. It's new. I like it. So yeah, that notebook is more precious to me than most of the things I own.
Hey, listen, that notebook may be used years later to inspire new people. I mean, that's amazing stuff to preserve ideas. And I agree, there should be an invention. And I think with MJ preserving and making her list, I think she will be able to find it and be able to help us all with that endeavor. So MJ, how about yourself? What are your inspirations for writing?
I genuinely, whatever podcast I just listened to, that's making my brain absolutely go into overdrive. It is when I have bulldozed through a show, which I'm sure we've all done. And I used to work at a library, and I would shelve books, which meant I had a lot of time to just wander around, and I would be doing, menial labor, but also I get time to listen. And I down whole shows, and then I would just sit down at the computer and be like, all right, this is now getting a 300 to 500 word summary plus review plus everything I like about it. Everyone will now hear about it within a 5-mile radius. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And how many of those have you done? Like, do you have
Oh,
like a
countless. Okay, so the only the officially I've done maybe about 20 of these that are out there in the wild. But in my own private, because I have my own scribblings notebook as well, although mine is digital. I use Obsidian so that I can connect my thoughts laterally, like my brain makes me do. And I there's hundreds there. I've listened to so many of these.
nice? All right. How about you, Lumi? How about yourself? What are your inspirations for writing? Especially since you are now having an unreleased audio drama that's going to be
Yeah.
released pretty soon.
Yeah. I don't know. It's again, I think very similarly, I have a very hard time consuming media without getting inspired at all. I think I think most stories are very inspiring um because you kind of um I don't know. I especially I really like whenever I see people use a medium in a new way, or whenever I see things that work
Yes.
really specifically in one particular medium. I'm also just generally very inspired by like theater and interactive mediums like TTRPGs and stuff like that. Not for this particular show, but like the inspirations are in there, and it's a thing I think a lot about. Um, so like I don't know, you can find inspirations in a lot of places. The one I'm working on right now takes a lot of inspiration from public domain content and like very old books and literature. So that sort of thing can also be very inspiring. Like putting old things in a new context is very exciting to me. Whenever you take media from like other mediums or from different times and you sort of put them into in a new amalgamation of a story, I think is a very fun and inspiring and thing to do. Um, yeah, I like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was there like a recent old novel or old story that you came across? You're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is perfect for reinventing it.
Uh, I think I like classics in general. I have a lot of thoughts about like when people adapt very popular public domain things, like the Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of my favorite old stories. And for the new show I'm making, I'm also taking a lot of inspiration from Sherlock Holmes, because that was the thing that, all the stories entered the public domain and suddenly people were using it in all sorts of different ways. And that is also very much used in that particular show. So I don't think that I necessarily it's a specific story, but I do take I do really enjoy looking into stories that have been enjoyed by a lot of people, and also just lesser known works like old cookbooks or old like books on how to sew, or old books on for children and that sort of thing. I think it's very fun to look into. Like I really like looking through the Gutenberg project and just coming across interesting things that people have used in their everyday lives.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, no, once something gets to the public domain, I love seeing how other people have reinvented it in great ways. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the recent horror movies when it comes to a lot of the new public domain stuff, but it just never ceases to surprise me what people will do with just old media. And it's really great
Mm.
to see people just reinvent it to bring some life into stuff. And I'm definitely excited to hear your audio drama once it
Oh, thank
releases,
you.
especially with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and all that stuff. Definitely going to be a
Yeah.
fun one.
No,
So
yeah.
when it comes to, and this questions will be starting with MJ, why do you think audio dramas are so attractive?
Oh,
Oh
for me
boy.
or for who? Oh, for MJ. Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Cool.
no worries. Yeah, this one's delightful. So sound is really unique, right? It takes control of time and space. Sounds go through you and you experience it in like a very present way. And I find it interesting that we don't really have a good idea on how we process information through sound, and why there's like that little extra delay and like that instant sort of capture that you get when you look at an image. And you can do, I think, a lot with that. And, audio drama lets you see with your ears, which is really cool. And you can really take advantage of, and I think this is a flawed sort of term, but like, you could take advantage of the theater of the mind. I think that's why a lot of, tabletop RPGs have taken advantage of the audio medium, but like there's also all sorts of things that are being done there. Like, music is like, it can evoke so much with just sound, right? And so there's all this narrative potential that's in there. And I think that's why all of us little gremlins just love to roll around in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, the theater of the mind, I love that so much. And it's so true because everything's in your head, and the way people are able to craft stories to where visualizing it in your head is just the perfect stage for it, where you don't need it to watch it on the screen. It's just absolutely amazing. I've seen so many people do some really great stuff with just visuals as well. Uh, Lumi, how about yourself? Why do you think audio dramas are so attractive?
Oh, I mean, generally, it's a very old medium with a very like rich backlog and history that's really interesting to look into. And I also think people talk a lot about restrictions in audio drama because it's like a non-visual medium, but I also think that it gives you a lot of opportunities that you don't have in a lot of other mediums, because like you get to like play with people's thoughts. You get to create soundscapes based on sounds that might not even like be the real thing that you are representing. And there's just like you can kind of it's very like there are a lot of audio dramas that do things that would be very very difficult to do in a visual medium. I think a lot of, for instance, Welcome to Night Vale is way more powerful because it's a non-visual medium, because
Mm.
you can kind of do things that are visually impossible, which I think is a very is a massive opportunity that you can kind of take advantage of. And I also just think, generally I have a lot of love for collaborative art forms. That's also why I sort of study like performance and theater. I really like when people can come together to create something that's sort of an amalgamations of people's talents and ideas. And I also just in a more general sense, I also like that the sort of developments of how you can bring audio along with you. Audio drama can also just follow you through your day a little bit. Like you can sort of on your walks, or if you're like commuting, or like while you do chores. So like you can kind of get memories of listening to specific episodes and specific locations and that kind of thing. It sort of like colors your day in an interesting way, and I just think that's very lovely and interesting to work with.
No, that's amazing and excellently said, and I definitely agree with that. Definitely follows you, and you could basically I drive a lot for my work, and if it wasn't for audio dramas, it'd be so boring. So, Hannah, how about yourself? Why do you think audio dramas are so attractive?
I there's a lot has already been said about this, but I'm gonna steal everybody else's answers and make a little witch's brew here. But I love the feeling of just from a consumer, like as a person who listens to audio dramas, that weird feeling you get where you're listening to an audio drama and you're doing things in your real human life, but you feel so weirdly floaty and disconnected from them because you are also living in a secret second life that is existing inside of your headphones. And there's something so cool about that state that like you don't get from other kinds of media. Especially for me, because like I don't want to watch things when I'm like out and about, but I love to listen to things. And I feel like the audio drama sort of provides something to watch, but only inside my own mind. And I love it there in that regard. Like people projecting images into my head. Cool. I love that. Nice magic. How do you do that? I'm gonna do it too.
No, I definitely agree. And just the magic is there. And the way so many people have been able to make it work has just been amazing. So, when it comes to that magic, especially when it comes to creating the story itself, Hannah, how long does it take you to like outline your story from beginning to end? And how many times have you had to go back to the drawing board to create that magic?
So for me and my writing partner Dennis, what we do is we use and it's always been the thing that we use, Blake Snyder's beat sheet. He writes for film, but the standardized rules apply of like it's 3 act structure, but with like extra nitty-gritty steps that are really useful to have a little look at. And we tend to do one pass of the whole season like that, of just like this is the story we want to tell in its entirety. Let's lay it out for ourselves beat by beat, see what we're doing. And then go back after that and divide that into how many episodes we want, or each of these beats needs to be in order to be satisfying and in order to tell the kind of story that we're trying to tell. So the planning stage takes us normally like a long weekend of us both just spending 12 hours in a Discord call each day going crazy. Then we put it away for like a couple of weeks so we don't look at it. And then we come back to it and we unpack it and we're like, oh, what were we thinking? We missed this whole thing here that we wanted to do. And we build on it then. I can't stress enough, especially for my process, the amount of like discovery you make when you just put something away for a couple of weeks and then come back to it with fresh eyes and just go, oh, right, hang on, I feel like we were getting at this, and then we dropped that thread and we can come back here now and like fix that hole that we accidentally made.
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you ever had a situation where you're like, I love this idea so much, and you were going with it and then realized that there was no way you could do it like as of right now and you've had to shelve it?
Oh, absolutely. Just recently we were because we have very specifically for Englewood 4 seasons. That's it. Englewood is 4 seasons. But we've had the overarching big like this is what happens in this 4 seasons, but we haven't had the nitty gritty fourth season like this is what happens in the fourth season yet. We have it for season 2 and season 3. We were working on that recently. We made a whole 3 act structure for the entirety of season 4, and then we went, nope, can't do that. That's nope. Gotta fix it. Can't. We basically scrapped it. The other thing we didn't scrap was the characters, but we were like, this plot is no, we can't do that. It's ridiculous. It's annoying. I don't like looking at it anymore. Back to the drawing board. But the nice thing about that is that, like, when you're writing with a partner, you get to just sort of say out loud, I actually hate this now. And they go, oh, thank God, I was thinking the same thing. When you're on your own and you have to do that, it's much more difficult because you're like, do I hate this because it is becoming more work, or do I hate it because it's genuinely not what we should be doing?
No, definitely understandable. And Lumi, since you are in the stages of writing your
Mm.
audio drama, how about yourself? How many times have you had to go
Hmm.
back to the drawing board when it came to your ideas?
I'm not a particularly heavy outliner. For Mechadova, the one I'm writing specifically, I kind of just decided that I didn't really wanna outline it. I went and I sort of like I had an idea of like what I wanted the story to say, and then I just decided that I'm gonna write like all the episodes in like a really bad draft form, and then I'm just gonna rewrite all of it, and I'm gonna like do a whole like puzzle with post-it notes and stuff like that to figure out what plot points work and which ones don't. Because I liked sort of discovering the story as I went along, and then I could like I sort of also discovered where the weaknesses were and where the different things sort of went south, and I could like research along the way, and I didn't have to care too much if the story if it was the writing was bad, because I could sort of go back and fix it, right? It's sort of the worst version of the thing. For Wanderer's Journal, it was I sort of helped. I was part of the outlining process a lot. We worked on it a little bit meticulously when I was visiting the writer of Wanderer's Journal. For like I visited him for like a month in the U.S., and we sort of like went through some of the some of the details, made some like vague outlining details, but it was very much just a small like a few notes for each episode, like this is the episode where this happens, or this is the episode where this happens, and then we sort of rough plot points, and then we also just sort of vaguely know what each season is like about and what's going to happen in each season. So it's very, I think outlining is sort of is happens sort of along the way, if in my experience at least. I sort of like to outline along the way. I'm not very good at just planning a plot line just off the bat. So I like sort of just playing around with it, like I'm playing with dolls, you know. I think it's quite fun. Um,
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you ever had someone point like at a plot hole and be like, "Wait a minute, wouldn't this make sense?" And you're like, "No!"
uh, yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to I like being able to justify the decisions when when they're made later. I like and whenever a plot hole is discovered, I think it's sometimes it's very, it sort of opens up a new opportunity for making a new world or plot details that you can sort of intertwine later. It's also why I don't when I plot too much, I find that I can sort of um, get lost in the plotting stages, and I sort of lose track of like whether it actually makes sense in the story, because sometimes something in the story sort of catches you off guard, and I like leaving it very vague when I can. Um,
Yeah, no, definitely understandable. And MJ, for an audio drama academic, how, like, for yourself, have you outlined a story from beginning to end, or have you seen other people in your research doing that as well, and you've seen them going back to the drawing board at all?
Yeah, I may have lied a little bit. I do write uh I am writing an audio drama right now.
Oh,
Uh but it is under wraps mostly. We're keeping quiet on it. So I have done some outlining. Uh and I am also similar to Lumi. I'm a pantser. I can't get too deep into the weeds, but that's why I have a co-writer who likes to plot. And I think that's kind of the way that I've seen a lot of writer duos in audio drama, and I find that it's always that interaction, and we've been talking about that collaboration, right? It's that interaction of ideas, and usually I see, two kinds of plotting styles. Like if we're picking apart one, like say, Welcome to Night Vale's creators. They've both made two, their own shows with other people as well. But then I feel like you have a very there's a very distinctive style to both of them, and I think because they're bringing both of those energies, then that makes that kind of writing process easier. But yeah, it's always bouncing it in between brain cells for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you guys ever had to like pull an idea back where you're like, okay, no, this isn't working, and your co-writer's like, no, it could work, and trying to make it work?
Yes. So I'm usually the one who's like, it's it's fine. We can. I think that if you can make two layers of justification happen in like world building, it will work. But my co-writer is a lot more logical about it, which is very useful because I start going off on fun little tangents of like, oh, and then this happens, and then they say, but how? And then I think that's extremely correct, but how?
That reminds me of improv. It's never no, it's ever and this and that.
Yeah, yeah, it's and I like that because it lets me it stops me from getting stuck in the weeds myself. Then I can just I can follow someone else's train of thought for a little bit and then be like, "Oh, actually, I'm going to get carried away here, but I know and trust that you're going to feed into what I'm thinking."
Yeah, no, definitely. And with that being said, and I know this is every writer's most dreaded thing to happen to them. MJ, have you ever experienced writer's block, or you or your co-writer, and what have you done to get past it? Because I know writer's block is just like the horror of all writers.
This is potentially I don't know how controversial of a opinion this is. I don't believe in writer's block. But I'm gonna
Really?
slightly yes, I'm gonna slightly reframe this. I think what people think of as writer's block is essentially feeling like you're running on fumes. You're not really
Burnout.
being blocked by anything, you're just hungry. I think a lot of the
Yes.
time it's because you haven't had food, like media. You're not being inspired because you're not taking in like what's around you. And this can be anything. You can listen to music, you can go outside, have like a hike, or just have a really good conversation with a friend, and suddenly, you have that feeling, like kind of that adrenaline. And then I think that is the thing that you're like just feeding yourself and allowing that creative energy to be poured into you and come back out again. Whatever's blocking you might be yourself.
You know what? That's actually not as controversial of a take as you may think. That actually makes a lot of sense. And I have actually seen like they're so into the writing process they forgot what inspired that writing process to begin with and everything else. No, I think that's actually a really brilliant take. Hannah, your opinions on this?
Yeah, I was sort of going yes in the background of that
Yay!
because yes, yes,
Yeah.
100%. I think the way in which we frame things is really important, especially as writers. Hey, but I think that you can defeat yourself, and also I think that it's really important to take into account your world and your life when it comes to stuff like writer's block. Like, if you are overwhelmed, overworked, tired, hungry, going through stuff, it can be really, really difficult to create. And sometimes what is construed as writer's block is just you're having a hard time and you need to take care of yourself first before you can take care of your craft. I like to talk about like refilling the well of like, okay, so I've run out of juice artistically. I need to consume media again. I need to I need to go watch a movie. I need to listen to some new music. I need to watch a new TV show. I need to, like, I will frequently ask my friends, like, can we put a movie on? I want to watch this specific movie with you guys because I haven't seen it yet, and I feel like it will really help my body and my brain to reacclimatize to, like, oh yeah, media and stories are really fun and you like it here. You were just burnt out. You were only producing and never replenishing yourself. Not to sound too much like a wellness guru. Uh,
It's true. You
just
gotta
realized the
eat though.
phrasing there.
You gotta eat. You gotta eat.
You gotta eat.
Yeah, no, definitely. Was there ever like a movie where you're like, I don't want to watch this movie, and then so your friend was like, you have to watch this movie, and you're like, oh my god, this actually helped me?
I'm normally the person that goes, "Can we put the TV on?" Which normally means I need to watch something, and you guys
Oh, me.
must put it on for me.
Gotcha. Lumi, how about yourself? What's your opinion on like this idea that you have
Hmm.
to eat to consume and everything else?
No, yeah, I was gonna say something similar regarding the writer's block thing too. I think there's like, consuming media, and also just like, going outside, looking at nature, like feeling how your senses take in the world can be really inspiring a lot of the time, and just talking to real people can also really help. Uh, and I also think there's something I hear from pretty much creatives of all types, like both in terms of like writers who make TTRPGs, writers who make like theater and film scripts and stuff like that, is that you will usually, after the inspiration stage and after you've written a bunch, reach like a stage where you hate absolutely everything you've ever made, and you're sort of like, I don't know how this is going to make sense ever. I think maybe I should just abandon this idea and just never look at it again. And I think that is probably the part where I sometimes call that writer's block, in the sense that there's like a moment where everything feels like it's for nothing, and you sort of have to step away a little bit, realize like what inspires you, and also just like look at things and consume other media and sort of get excited about your own thoughts and ideas again. I think is very nice. Talk to people who like them, and sort of find new stuff, come ask interesting questions about your own work, that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And honestly, all three, there should do another panel, which is helping people with inspirations to get out of that, like not replenishing. I think all three of you would be excellent for that panel because you got all guys had amazing, like inspirational things to say about this subject that I didn't even think. And you've completely changed my viewpoint on this. Like, this is amazing.
Woohoo!
Oh, yeah. So, now I'm going to go ahead and ask very specific questions. And for Hannah, your show, Englewood After Dark, is very different from other audio dramas that I have listened to, since it kind of takes like somewhat of a form of a true crime podcast while also being itself an audio drama as well. What was the inspiration for doing that? Because I don't think I've ever heard another audio drama do that type of takeaway.
I love a good can't say words. I love a good framing device. We're not particularly. I don't think we're so unique. I just think it's like one of those things of like, what's a really fun way to produce an audio drama within our constraints? Because it's our first audio drama. I said this earlier, but putting on my baby hat, we've been making this for like 3 months. Uh, and when we were pitching it to ourselves, we were like, okay, so how do we make the format like an easier access for us as first time sound editors and first time audio drama producers, right? A good framing device was the answer. And so we ended up with this idea of like, okay, so if you're gonna have with our main characters, Eve and Finn, you're gonna have the skeptic versus the true believer. You're never gonna get your skeptic to buy into a we're looking for ghosts show. So how do you frame that? You frame that as a true crime podcast, because that you can get a skeptic into as the clever backdoor into. But like, what if it's ghosts? Hear me out. What if it's ghosts? And building it from there into as we head into Act 2 now. The next episode is going to be a fun old time where we go really deep down the rabbit hole of not that anymore, fun other things instead. But yeah, it was sort of a stepping stone for us, but also that idea of like framing devices are super cool and fell out of style in literature, like with stuff like Dracula's told us a series of like epistolary, like commentaries, journals, notes, and stuff. And then podcasting and audio dramas picked that back up and went, yeah, this is a radio show. This is a true crime. This is a podcast in a podcast. These are all audio recordings. Podcasting and audio dramas loves a good framing device, and it can really help to sell what you're trying to put forward story-wise.
No, and I definitely agree. And I think you outdid yourself with this. the framing device and everything about Englewood After Dark has been fantastic. And if you would have told me that this was your first time, I wouldn't have believed you. Like, it's just so good. I've been enjoying it, and I'm already caught up. Like, I'm already
Oh
there
yeah.
waiting for the next episode. And I'm there like, why did the last one have to end in a cliffhanger? Why? But no, that honestly, Englewood After Dark, really great, and you guys are amazing, especially for your first show. You
Thank you.
absolutely amazing. Lumi, when it comes to so since you're the showrunner for Wandering Journal, how
Yeah.
does this relationship between your position and the writers work, especially with you writing your own audio drama as well?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that Raf, who writes Wanderer's Journal, and I are very, very close collaborators and have been for pretty much as long as we've known each other. So I think we have a pretty good understanding of each other's process and how we tell stories and that sort of thing. But essentially, with Wanderer's Journal, we sort of come up with the basic details of an episode together and sort of the basic outline. Sometimes I sort of like step in if there's something if there's something that Raph is having a difficult time with and vice versa. So we usually come up with like important events or character moments for an episode. Then Raph writes an episode, and I read it, and I leave a bunch of notes and questions and suggestions and that sort of thing. And then Raph edits it, and I usually read again and that sort of thing. And then I also handle some of the reformatting tasks, and I also have a very big part in writing sound notes for our sound designer. For a sound designer, we sort of I talk to him a lot when he has questions about how different things should be soundscaped. Um, so I'm sort of the person communicating with the different parts of the team and making sure that nothing gets lost in translation between each part of it. Um, but that's the sort of thing is like it's yeah, it's about knowing each other and communicating with each other, and I that is sort of how Wanderer's Journal is made specifically. And with my own show that I'm writing, I will say the writer of Wanderer's Journal is also very involved with that show. I show him the drafts and I talk to him when I'm stuck, and that's so we're sort of like using each other to brainstorm and talk to sort of get ourselves like a little programming rubber duck, the thing where you talk explain your code to a rubber duck. It's kind of a similar
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you ever had to go back to the writer, especially if the audio person was like, "No, no, not happening, can't happen at all."
Our sound designer is very, very nice, so he hasn't ever said that. Sometimes there will be a thing like where we're thinking, oh, that's a really fun idea in the writers' room. For Wanderer's Journal, we have a character that is made to be visually impossible, but the thing is that it's very difficult to design a visually impossible character. We have a character called Creature, which is very unspecified what Creature looks like and how Creature moves. So there, I've had a lot of talks with the sound designer of where we've sort of trying to ground the thing that is supposed to not be grounded, which can be a little bit of a challenge. So we haven't, but like sometimes our sound designer Jose will ask me a question, and I will bring the question back to Raf, and sometimes Raf will say I don't know, and then I'll just come up with an answer that I think is fitting.
Oh, no, that's amazing, and I bet any editors in the crowd or sound designers are like, "Oh, I have stories." So,
Absolutely.
and that's that's amazing. MJ, for you as a podcast academic, what is the most consistent thing you have seen with writers from different genres of podcasts or audio dramas?
I'm gonna go a little bit into sort of narrative structure here, and this is kind of ties into what Hannah said earlier. But audio drama fiction pods love investigation plots. We're always this And by that I mean it's a group of people or a person who is like trying to find out like the mystery of a thing, right? And this can factor into all sorts of things. I don't know. It's like a chicken or the egg situation where it could be because there's a lot of like horror podcasts as well as there being a lineage from serial having become so popular and true crime in general. Outside of that, and as we've said before, we love our framing devices. If you want to learn more about that, come to my presentation coming up in the convention. But I think that that's that sort of mimicking of other mediums is there's like this real concern with the form, right? And understanding like what the form does to change or like tell specific stories. And I don't know if it's just that I read The House of Leaves at like a really formative time, but it's something that I like to notice a lot. Like what happens, when something is told entirely in voicemails, like for example, like Arden is a fiction podcast of a fictional true crime podcast, sort of like how Englewood is. And it's commenting on real true crime podcast. World Gone Wrong takes that, popular chatcast format outside of fiction podcasts, and it gives it a new coat of paint, and then it gives, it's dealing with themes of lockdown and isolation. And like Breaker Whiskey is a short bite-sized radio transmissions, right? And it's a character that's rambling into a mic trying to find connection to the world, and it's more powerful because that character's alone in the world, and so it's like a radio transmission going out to nowhere. So it's that I see a lot of that interest in like how stories are told and how they're told through audio.
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you ever seen like a writer like have the most out there style that you're like, how does that possibly work? But it does.
With their style, it's not as out there as I would say, but when writers incorporate music, and it's usually musicians that or like or that like get into audio drama that do this. It's stuff like Dream Boy or Orbiting Human Circus of the Air. It creates this sort of disinterest in cohesion of a narrative that just starts becoming like disparate images, which I find really interesting. And it can also come in the form of something that's a little bit more structured, like say Rocking Chair or Settlement. That one's by Scantic River Productions. It's delightful. It's a musical, but it's framed as a story that you're being told, but it's also happening simultaneously, so you'd be whooshed around to different images, right? And I like that disjointedness that makes it feel really much like a David Lynch, kind of movie that's interested in
Huh.
that kind like audio aesthetics.
That's also I don't think I've heard of an audio drama musical. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing, and God help the, editors for that, the sound designers, because they're
Oh
like,
yeah. It's
"Oh, yeah."
hard for them, I've heard.
I guarantee you they're like, "I'm not getting paid for this, but I'm doing it for the passion."
Yeah, yeah, and because music production, it's this and whole entire other thing. But I find the way that people who like music structure narrative way differently, and it makes her very interesting. That's why stuff like concept album narratives, sort of like bleeding into the way that they tell podcasts. That's cool.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I've listened to a couple of podcasts. One of them is Maleficent that incorporates music just so well, and it's just you're there thinking to like, "Oh my god, I just music opening the soul and stuff like that." It's just it's honestly amazing, and kudos for those who are able to do that because again, that's just amazing stuff. But I think it's enough time for me asking the questions. I bet the audience is clamoring to ask their own. So we're going to go ahead and open up the chat for questions from the audience. Audience members, you have been listening this entire time. to these wonderful panelists talk. Do you guys have any questions for all of them or for a specific panelist in mind? Please do not hesitate to send the questions in.
How exciting.
I can see one from Astral Fire. I think I'm saying that right. For those of you who have co-writers, how did you come together on your projects?
Ooh. Can I give one on this? Because it will be very short. Go for it.
Of course.
We met at art school, and then we're walking up a hill, and then asked each other, "Hey, wouldn't it be crazy if we made a story together and it was in audio?" And then they said, "So true," opening a Google Doc.
My answer is basically I played D&D with my friends, and I knew one of them was also a writer, and one of them was into creating things, and I was like, "Hey guys, you want to form an unholy alliance of 3 people with ADHD that will definitely not go wrong?" And we did it. But to be more serious, there are a bunch of Discord servers out there with creatives who are working on their own projects and who are
Yes,
happy to pitch in on
absolutely.
other people's projects.
Absolutely.
There's of course the podcast book club, but there's also the audio drama creators.
Drama creators,
Discord server.
yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Lumi, what's your thoughts on this?
I don't know. Raph, who makes Wonders Journal, and I, we met on fandom Tumblr 2020.
Yes.
Yes. Classic place to meet people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we sort of just and audio, we just sort of got into audio drama, and then we just sort of started talking like, could we do that? Maybe we could do that. But yeah, there are a lot of really fun collaborators. Collaborate with your friends, collaborate with people who inspire you, that sort of thing. Fun.
Can I just also
awesome. And
jump in for 2 seconds on, sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, no, go for it. Go for it.
For a fun little backstory on Station Arcadia, the podcast, those people who work on it all met through the Mechanisms, which is, if you know Johnny Sims, that was a university band for Johnny Sims. And they met on the Discord for the Mechanisms, just purely as fans of, this kind of thing.
That's
So like
fun.
genuinely, you can meet people anywhere, and if you drive, give it a shot.
Yeah.
You should start
That's
propositioning
awesome.
people to work with you on an audio drama today.
Start
Exactly.
now. It's never too
That is
late.
awesome. Yeah, never too late at all. All right, we got a question from Calmo Data. I apologize if I'm butchering the name. Never been good at those. Tagging onto co-writers, how do you try and balance the writing process together? Hannah, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. We have a pretty like 50-50 split. We outline the season, we make the episode outlines, and then we just split trading off episodes. So like if I write episode 1, then Dennis will write episode 2, and so on and so on. In the first season we did it much worse, where we were crafting different pages together in a Frankenstein-esque amalgamation of horror that even Victor Frankenstein would flinch at. But yeah, for the second season, as we're working through it, it's much nicer to just swap off episodes and then edit each other's episodes. So if I write an episode, Dennis is in charge of editing that episode to make sure it's in line with the overall of his as well.
Have you guys ever had a situation where you're editing the other one's episode and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to kill them?
No, complete confusion. I'd forgotten, like, wait, why did this just happen, though? We agreed this wouldn't happen. What? What's going on? That has happened.
Gotcha. Lumi, how about yourself? How do you try to balance the writing process together?
I will say, I don't know if this is specifically for Raph and I. It is also, it is for all creative collaborators. I think that I experience when I work with people and when I witness other people work with each other, that one of a really big reason for creative disagreements is a result of not communicating each other's vision correctly, or having very different visions for a project. And I think it's very, very important to communicate intentions and ask questions to each other to make sure that nothing gets lost in translation. Like if one person thinks they're writing like a horror comedy, or another person thinks like they're writing like something slightly different, or if there's different ideas for like how a character arc fits with this, fits thematically into the story, I think that sort of thing can create disagreements and can also make it harder to communicate your vision with the different aspects of the audio drama. And that's sort of where disagreements tend to happen, and where it can be harder to collaborate with each other. So I think that is very important, to be very, very clear, and not necessarily just assume that you are always on the same page, even if you know each other very well, because sometimes little things can get lost.
No, definitely, definitely. MJ, what are your thoughts on this question?
It's it's very difficult to sort of split. I feel like not. What am I saying? I think it's you immediately find yourself gravitating towards certain ideas, even if it's not one you've pitched yourself. You know you're like, this is like something that feels more like my wheelhouse, and then dividing it off from there has been how we've done it. My co-writer and I work a little tighter, where we split an episode up into like beats, and then we work on a beat each, because the point of view switches. So then we're sort of simultaneously working on it on a Discord call, and then like chat about it as it's going on. And it's great to do that, because then when your character has done something absolutely stupid, you just hop on call and be like, why'd they do that? They're so silly, and I'm making them do it. Dance for me.
Dance, puppet dance. Oh, that's amazing. All right, we got time for one more question from the Q&A. And the question is, and this is from Quills, is it sometimes annoying to write for audio only? And I'm going to go ahead and shoot this question to MJ.
Audio only. Oh, okay, right. So I basically I come from a illustration background. I'm very visual, and my other writing is mostly on film. So absolutely, I take a lot of it is a frustration with myself, where I find myself using a lot of TV style writing,
Mm.
and then I think, what am I doing? No one's gonna see that. No one's gonna see that happen. I find that some tricks translate really well. Like I know that Wall 359 does that whoosh sound effect when they move from scene to scene, and I think that's wonderful, and some of it works, but it does get very frustrating for someone who's as visual as I am.
No, I could definitely understand that. Have you ever had a situation where you're like, I want this to work, but it's audio, it can't work?
Yeah, yeah. But again, the co-writer is really useful here in the sense of, okay, but what does that look like? Well, what does that sound like? And then I think, yeah, so true. Let me think about that again.
Definitely. Hannah, since I know you said that your co-writer is more into the film, have you ever had to kind of let him remind them that this is audio, it's not going to work?
I have had to. Sorry, Dennis. I have had to.
Call out. On
Uh,
blast.
I have had to write notes on scripts like, and what is happening here? Why is it a secret? Because like whilst things cannot be communicated visually, it is still really helpful to write in a script for the actors what is physically happening in the scene
Yeah.
that you are writing, because they have otherwise they have no way of conceiving what they're meant to be doing, like as a character. Like, oh, in this scene we are in a kitchen, someone is making coffee. Hey, that's an easy audio cue to have put in there as to where we are and what's going on. If you don't tell them that, they are confused and left out in the cold. And that was one of my early notes with Dennis was, and what are they doing with themselves? Where are they? Why is it a secret?
Oh, that is awesome. Lumi, how about yourself? Any thoughts on this? Especially since I know
Uh,
you're also close to releasing
yeah.
your audio drama.
Yeah, I think I do not consider myself a very visual person. I actually think that for me, I sometimes struggle to ground it even more in a visual reality. It's like sometimes I realize that okay, maybe I should know what the vague layout of this room is, or like maybe I should know vaguely what this character is wearing to sort of like express this particular thing. I think I don't think I think very visually or in a particularly visual style. I'm not super good at like visual character design. So I think so for me it's not a challenge. I actually think it takes away a lot of things I think are the most difficult about writing in a very picturesque manner. I think it takes away some challenges and gives me the opportunity to just sort of to not have to worry about how it's going to be visually represented because it's not going to be visually represented.
No, and that definitely makes a lot of sense and everything else. And honestly, I cannot wait to see your audio drama when it releases. You
Thank
definitely have to make sure to send me like the notification when the release date is because I'm excited. And MJ, same goes to you.
Aw.
I know it's hush hush now, but I'm definitely excited to see what your audio drama is going to be. And I honestly can't wait for the release date.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, of course. Well,
exciting.
oh, yeah. Well, everybody, sadly, the hour has come and gone. It has been an amazing time spending with you guys, and it's been an amazing time spending time with these panelists. So I am going to go ahead and let them say a final goodbye to you and let them talk about their shows because each of them are amazing. Two of them have two audio dramas that are going to be coming up, and Hannah herself has an amazing audio drama. If you haven't listened to it, please do. It's amazing. I'm already caught up and already scratching on the door for the next episode. Hannah, you want to go first?
Sure. Hi. You should check out Echoed After Dark. It is a true crime kind of parody that delves into horror, and there is a big narrative twist coming up, which you could look forward to. I'm also writing for, oh no, in my head I always call it just PPPP because it has so many P's in the title. Hang on, I
PP.
must look it up really quickly. Send help.
Oh yeah,
Professor Pandemonium's Peculiar Panoply. There we go. I'm also writing for Professor Pandemonium's Peculiar Panoply. That's coming up soon. You should look forward to it if you like haunted carnivals. And also for Tales from the Dead West, you can look forward to that as well. I'm writing a little bit for that. If you haven't checked out Dead West yet, you should. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And for that title with the so many P's, I think we found our new drinking game. Drink 5 shots and say that 50 times or 10 times fast. Lumi, how about you go ahead and tell
yeah.
people exactly what to look forward to?
Yeah, you should check out Wanderer's Journal. We're currently in the process of producing season 2, and I think season 2 is really really good. I think our writer did an amazing job with it. Our cast is amazing. It's essentially it's a story about two people in a fantasy world who find a magical journal that they can communicate with each other through, and then there's a bunch of stuff about connections and narratives and destiny in there. And my upcoming project, the Mechadova Engine, is a sort of steampunk project about a world that takes place entirely on large trains told through the eyes of a librarian who only has the context of books from the old times on Earth. Which I think, and I'm also very excited about that. Though it is a little bit slow in the process, slowly in the process of being made. Yes.
I cannot wait to listen to it once it releases. And MJ, I know you said it's hush hush, but is there anything you can tell us about your upcoming audio drama?
I'll drop the title.
Ooh.
So
Ooh,
the upcoming it's
Ooh.
called Greetings from the Pegasus Starline.
I love it.
Ooh.
And
Sounds
there's an
sick.
exclamation mark at the end. That's important. Uh,
Important.
Nice.
and that's all you'll get. If you want to take a peek into my brain, because I do occasionally post about it, I am on tumblr.com at Disco
Ooh.
Captain, where I also do
Oh.
my ear candy updates. So if you want to hear about what I've been listening to, it will come out there.
Nice. That's amazing. And I bet the wonderful mods that have been helping us out Definitely will have everything when it comes to links and everything somewhere, and I'll let them take over. But guys, again, all of you have been amazing. Thank you so much for coming onto the
Thank you.
panel. And let's
Thank you
go
for
ahead and
having
also
us.
give a shout out to, yeah, of course, a shout out to the mods who have been helping
Thank
us,
you,
the silent
mods.
Thank you,
helpers.
Thank you,
mods.
Thank
mods.
you. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you guys later. And for all you audience members, please don't hesitate to check out the Artists Alley and check out the other panels to listen to more amazing people tell their story. It's been a fun one. It's been amazing. And see you guys later.